Thank you, and welcome everyone. So I'm Zach Rule, and Dr. Urban will join me in just a second. I will say it's pretty interesting for me to be in this location. In 1995, before Google even existed, my first job out of university was 2 blocks down the street. Silicon Graphics, if there's any old school folks in here, it's a good lead-in for a GenAI discussion, because it was really a GPU kind of NVIDIA before there was NVIDIA. So I was just 30 years too early. But regardless, it's good to be back in this area. And for today, we thought we would share a few market trends that we're seeing. So we're with Coursera, online learning platform with 168 million learners. And so we work with a lot of organizations around the skills and what are organizations doing to prepare for GenAI. So I thought we'd share some market information that we see that might be useful in your own discussions. You're welcome to borrow any of this information. And then we'd share a little bit more specifically about what some customers are doing to prepare their workforce for generative AI. So let's go ahead and jump in. So this probably doesn't need much explanation. Nobody's going to argue that technology is increasing at an ever-increasing rate, but I think this is a good slide. When you think about how fast different technologies are getting to 100 million learners, ChatGPT did it in 2 months, right? And there's a reason for that, right? Basically, everything globally is available instantly on your phone. But this is an example of how fast the technology world is changing. And when you think about organizations, there's obviously technical skills that are required to take advantage of these new technologies such as GenAI, and there's lots of other ones too. But it's also the talent, practice, and agility. How do you in an organization help enable the workforce to be able to take advantage of these skills? So we'll talk a little bit more about this. There's also a lot of talk out in the media about, oh, this is going to take away all the jobs, right? GenAI. And there will definitely be some disruption in jobs, but I would also point to there have been other technologies that have come through, and it doesn't necessarily eliminate jobs. It really changes the way that a lot of folks work and they drive their productivity. So these are just a couple examples for that particular aspect around GenAI taking jobs. And without a doubt, I mean, we all probably hear it in the media. We might have own examples with our children or within our own work environment. But there are a lot of economic opportunities that are coming out of the GenAI revolution. So there's clearly no shortage, and this is from Lightcast, of additional jobs that are out there that are looking for GenAI skills. There's a lot of employers that are looking to hire individuals with these skills. I have a personal example with this. My daughter's in university down in Southern California, and she was going for a very competitive internship. She's a marketing major, very competitive internship with a tech company. And she had taken a digital marketing certificate from Meta. And she talked about what she had learned in that particular course, and it really differentiated her for this very competitive internship. And this is what's happening in a lot of the hiring areas today. I'm sure many of you that are involved in the hiring aspects at your organization, clearly the tech skills are a lot of the harder ones to find and can often be more expensive in the marketplace. And now this one comes from Amazon. It might be a little biased. They have got a big focus on GenAI, but there is a lot of talk around the premium that's paid for a lot of these skills as well. So, and we see it from a Coursera perspective, the amount of GenAI content that is being consumed. Dr. Urban's going to talk a little bit more about what we see on our platform, but it's going through the roof. And this is because of the economic opportunity that a lot of individuals see for themselves by having these type of skills. So the other thing that's interesting is clearly there's technical aspects of learning these new technologies and how to apply them. So prompt engineering is a common term, say, within the GenAI space. But when you look at a lot of the research, and this is World Economic Forum research, most organizations, it's a combination of the technical skills and the human skills that if you do both of those, there's a bigger impact, right? Accenture did a study where you get an 11% productivity gain if you really know the technical and you can communicate, right? In our environments, in our organizations, our companies, nothing of impact typically gets done unless you're working effectively cross-functionally. And so that ability to be able to communicate, it's one thing to be able to do certain things with technology, but to be able to translate that to the business value or to talk about it from a different stakeholder perspective within the organization, that's how you ultimately get impact. And so that combination of the technical skills and the human skills are critical. And here's an example from World Economic Forum of a lot of the particular skills that are in highest demand. And if you look on kind of the left side, the core skills, you'll see a lot of the everyday human type skills and business skills that are required. And if you just look at the number one skill, analytical thinking. Not everybody's in a technical role, but everybody, regardless of job function, finance, HR, marketing, data is driving more decisions. And so that's a big driver of being able to understand how to apply data and make better decisions is key. And then when you look on the right side, the top fastest growing skills, right? You're seeing a lot of those technology components. So AI, big data, cybersecurity is big as well. So that combination of those two is really what a lot of the external research is showing are the top skills. And I would say we see that as well from the Coursera side. And then how are organizations really bringing these skills into the organization? Again, World Economic Forum, there's a lot. The number one focus is upskilling the workforce, right? Helping the existing folks that you have at your organization acquire these skills and be more effective. And then there's always the other route, which is kind of the third one, is we hire as well. So you look to go external and you bring more of those skills into the organization. Of course, it's always a combination at most organizations, but this is a lot of what the research shows people are doing to fill this skills gap. And then I would just kind of end this opening section with clearly companies are thinking a lot about AI. They want to squeeze the more productivity out of their individuals, their employees. A lot of organizations are concerned about their competitors, maybe being able to leapfrog them. There's also a lot where you're building and they're developing new ways to engage with clients and customers and really change their business model. So that is a big part of what's driving a lot of this. And I'd like to invite Dr. Urban up to talk a little bit more about some of how we are seeing data on the Coursera platform, as well as how some of our big clients are helping us address this challenge. So, Dr.
Great.
Urban?
Thank you so much, Zach. That set the stage perfectly for thinking about how are we at Coursera thinking about GenAI? How are we enabling our customers, like many people in this room, to upskill their workforce around GenAI? I was talking with a few people at the breakfast about this, but we have something called GenAI Academy. And what's exciting about that is it's not just GenAI content in general. It's really getting into some of the specific business use cases that can help employers with their kind of most strategic goals. So not only GenAI literacy, so kind of that 0 to 1 knowledge right at the beginning, but also GenAI for executives, right? Even if you're not in the weeds of your product, what do you need to know about GenAI related to vision and strategy for the company? And then lastly, my favorite, GenAI for teams, getting into the specifics of what does the finance team, legal team, product managers, data scientists, engineers, marketing, right? We all know that there's all these different tools that folks across your organization are probably already experimenting with on their own, but how can we create a more unified upskilling strategy for those folks? So that's one way we're helping. And then In terms of GenAI content driving demand, we see immense interest on our platform. So both from consumer, so anyone can go to Coursera.org and start taking content. And we really saw that consumers were the first ones to drive this demand. And now enterprise, our Coursera for Business customers have also kind of jumped on that train on GenAI upskilling. So you can see more than 3 million enrollments, and that was at the end of or actually the middle of last year, 1 enrollment every minute in content in 2023. That was up to 6 enrollments every minute in 2024. I was just talking to one of our leaders yesterday who told me that's up to 7 enrollments every minute so far in 2025. So that rate of increase is still continuing. Interestingly, so I was talking about the consumer versus enterprise. So you can see, I know it might be a little hard to see here, but in the background, this first line that increases, that's consumer enrollment. So folks coming to Coursera.org choosing to enroll in content. And we see that those consumers were really interested, right? They'd heard about ChatGPT, they wanted to know more. You can see that huge increase back in 2023, right, driving enrollments. This slightly darker line in front is enterprise enrollments. So this is Coursera for Business and other institutions buying content for their own internal employees. And you can see that that was a little bit later, more like 2024. And then even sort of the end of last year into this year is really when that started to skyrocket. And then how are we as a company using GenAI to improve our product? When we're thinking about the learning experience, GenAI has been really top of mind. We want to integrate it thoughtfully in a way that's pedagogically grounded to really improve the learner experience. And so one way we're doing that is with something we're calling Coursera Coach. So it's an AI-powered tutor that's grounded in the content of the course. So we have these courses created by subject matter experts from industry leaders and from university experts. And Coach is a way that any learner can ask a question. They can say, hey, could I have a little bit more practice related to maybe my current role or my industry? Could you explain that in a different way? Could you actually summarize this content, but in Spanish or in Mandarin? And it's a really nice way for folks to interact with the content in a new way and get some of that tailored support that they weren't able to previously. So we rolled this out last year, and we're seeing a lot of different use cases for how learners are already engaging with Coach. So as I mentioned, it's personalized, it's interactive, it's grounded in this trusted content from experts, so a little bit different than some of those broader chatbots that many of us are familiar with and have been using. It's really helped to supercharge the learning. It's also developed not only with our product and engineering experts, but also with our user research and teaching and learning teams, so that it's really grounded in instructional design and pedagogical best practices. And then lastly, it's of course guided by Coursera's AI principles on ethical and responsible use of AI for the safety of the content on our platform and of course our end users, the learners. But you might be interested in, who's using it, how are they using it so far? And so we're seeing that to date, Coursera Coach has helped more than 1 million learners. We kind of rolled it out, slowly over time so that we could gather feedback from all of these user experiences. And 89% of learners have said that they're really satisfied with the Coursera Coach experience. Interestingly, we're seeing that 9.5% more likely to pass a quiz on their first attempt if they use Coursera Coach. So exciting to see how this extra interactive experience, more practice, more tailored, can actually help people perform better on the assessments. And also that it's also helping learners move more quickly through content, which is great because the majority of our learners are actually working full time, right? Whether they're coming on the consumer platform or definitely, right, from our enterprise customers, they have a full-time job. And so time is always an issue when we think about learning. And Coach is a great way to not only tailor and personalize, but also help them move more quickly and successfully through the content. We're also seeing that Coursera Coach is actually helping the most traditionally underserved learners by online learning, something I'm really passionate about and excited to see. So women or female learners are more than 11% more likely to actually use Coach. So they're finding that this is the kind of experience they want, right? We see a lot of psychological safety with Coursera Coach, right? There's no such thing as a dumb question. It'll never get frustrated or bored or annoyed that you're asking multiple things. And so Coursera Coach is something that women in particular have really chosen to interact with at a higher level. We're also seeing that learners who are just starting their career are significantly, almost 40% more likely to interact with Coursera Coach, right? If you think of yourself back, either current or back when you were starting your career, you often had a lot more questions at that stage, right? So having a personalized tutor, someone you can go to clarify, is especially helpful for that group. And then lastly, we see that those without a college degree, so either some college or only high school, are also significantly more likely to use Coursera. So all three of these groups are traditionally have lower completion rates in courses, so we're really excited to see that Coursera Coach is something that can help support their online learning experience. This was part of a broader research that we did, so we'll make sure you all have access to that. It's freely available online. In addition to Coursera Coach, in the side of the course, we also have dialogue and role play items. So this is embedding the Coursera Coach experience into a learning item in the course. It's a great chance to have a more Socratic dialogue kind of style conversation with prompts around a specific scenario. So for example, in an influencing course, you could actually try to negotiate, or in a management course, actually practicing some of those crucial conversations. And that's something we've seen as a great use case for Coursera Coach, embedded directly in the course. One other way that we're using GenAI is around AI grading in peer reviews to improve feedback. And what we're seeing is that it significantly helps with course completion. As expected, right, learners are getting their grades much faster than waiting for peers in the course, and they're getting a lot more